Well, I'm very proud of my parents and the Indian-American community. They emphasized for my brother and me the importance of education, of civility, of community service, of civic mindedness, and that has been the story for so many Indian-American communities across America. And you see now, as a result, that we're contributing to the economy, we're contributing to the community, we're now contributing to the arts, to the entertainment world, and to politics. And I think the Indian-American community has so much to offer in America's healing, in America's recommitment to a common purpose. We can help be leaders in that.
On my next Coffee Break USA, I catch up with an American politician, U.S. Congressman Ro Khanna, who represents Silicon Valley in the House of Representatives. I want to know what drew him to politics at an early age, his own family connection to the Indian freedom struggle, why speaking across the aisle on polarizing issues matters to him, and what life is like for a politician with a young family in America. So I'm here with Congressman Ro Khanna, who represents Silicon Valley. It's lovely to meet you.
Great to meet you.
And I'm catching you on what's clearly a busy weekend, right? It's a Saturday and you're meeting people, and we're here at a community college where you've had a meeting. You obviously really like being out there with people and the community.
Well, it's part of the job. We have a town hall every month and meetings with community leaders, student leaders. Today we were at Dianza discussing some of the issues of anti-Semitism and the war in Gaza, and then later going to an iftar dinner. So a lot of being active in the community.
It seems like very early on you knew that political life and public life might be a calling for you. How did you know so early, and how did it feel to sort of embark on that? I know you're a lawyer, you've also worked in tech, you've taught as a professor, but clearly politics was always there for you from the beginning.
Well, I think I had an interest in human rights. I'm not sure elective politics, but my grandfather, Amarnath Vidyalankar, spent years in jail alongside Gandhi in the Indian independence movement. He worked for Lala Lajpat Rai and then became a member of parliament in India's first parliament. So when I was young, I'd visit Delhi and he'd tell stories about the Indian independence movement, and that gave me a sense of grounding on the importance of human rights, of the importance of self-determination. And I would write letters to the editor growing up in my school papers. I worked on President Obama's very first campaign as a student at University of Chicago when he ran for the state senate. And then I just got more and more active. But the first time I ran, I was inspired because I was opposed to the war in Iraq. And I lost, but I ran a campaign opposing that war. And that was really my entry into beginning a political life.
What's life like as a politician with a young family? Do you have to sacrifice a lot? Does it take a lot out of your family time? It's still a choice you've made. What's it like for you every day?
Well, I have an incredible wife. I'm very, very lucky, and of course love my family, but it is a sacrifice for anyone in public service. You're traveling a lot, you're with the community, you're with the constituency, and then you're in DC, and it's a lot of travel back and forth. And so I try to maximize the time for my family, but anyone in public life, that is something that one has to be aware that there is a sacrifice. In my case, I'm very, very lucky that Ritu is an incredible wife, mother, partner.
One of the things that you said that stood out to me was that you want to unify people. And in politics, everywhere seems like it can be very polarizing, but you want to bring people together with on common ground from different parts of America, from the coast to the heartland. How do you feel that's possible? What is it that people have in common that can maybe quell some of the automatic polarizing?
Well, we need a common mission in America. When my father came to America in 1968, President Kennedy had said we were going to go to the moon, and this was the place to be. People had a passion. This country was moving. We were building things. It's going to the moon that led to the founding of Silicon Valley, because NASA purchased huge amounts of semiconductors. And we need a common economic mission again to make America a manufacturing superpower so that we help bring new manufacturing steel, new clean aluminum to deindustrialized towns, to help take the innovation of Silicon Valley, $10 trillion of wealth in my district, and bring those opportunities in districts across America. Not saying people are going to go become tech millionaires or tech billionaires, but the digital trades, the AI practitioners. How do we create ladders of economic prosperity in a modern economy in every part of America? I think that common mission can help unify us.
You speak about your family having come here. Your father is a chemical engineer, your mom a school teacher. What is the Indian community's impact today, and how do you see that it has evolved as a community, or the many Indian communities in America over the generations? How do you feel the community has grown over the years?
Well, I'm very proud of my parents and the Indian-American community. I mean, they came here with no finances, no connections. They built a middle-class life in Pennsylvania. They emphasized for my brother and me the importance of education, of civility, of community service, of civic-mindedness. And that has been the story for so many Indian-American communities across America. And you see now, as a result, that we're contributing to the economy, we're contributing to the community, we're now contributing to the arts, to the entertainment world, and to politics. And I think the Indian-American community has so much to offer in America's healing, in America's recommitment to a common purpose. We can help be leaders in that.
When you talk to people about topics that are very sensitive, that people might have very different beliefs about when it comes to reproductive rights, how do you speak to people whose ideas might differ from yours? How do you have like civilized dialogue? And why is it that it's important to you that that should be done and not only speak about one's own perspective?
Well, when it comes to women's rights, I've been very, very vocal. I was on the board of Planned Parenthood. I believe it's a matter of fundamental equality to have women have a right to control their own bodies. That is a matter not just of freedom, it is of fundamental equality and dignity of people as equal citizens of America. But I have engaged with people who don't share that view, like Bishop Barron, and went on his podcast and tried to understand where he's coming from and engaged in a conversation with civility, but firm in my convictions, firm in my beliefs, but not one with reflexive moral superiority, trying to hear and understand the person's viewpoint and then to persuade them with argument.
How do you feel that people in your work as in politics, you want to speak to everybody, right? How have you felt that, have there been instances where you feel like, you know, there's a lot more in common that people have than what is keeping people from talking to each other or feeling, othering each other?
I do think there's a lot in common. We all want good jobs. We all want our kids to do well, to live in safe communities, to have a good education, to have health care. We all want in America this country to be extraordinary in its economy, to be preeminent as a manufacturing power, preeminent in the world in innovation. And the question is, how do you get there? And we have differences. The challenge has become that when those differences become so entrenched that people give off a feeling of moral superiority, that if someone doesn't agree with them, that they are somehow better than that person, then I think it drives people away. Whereas if you try to respect where someone's coming from and viewpoint and win the day with argument, win the day with persuasion, you have a better chance of building a broad coalition. And that was the technique of great leadership that someone like Lincoln took, that someone like Obama took, and those are the models of leadership that I look to.
In this big election year, it's hard to predict anything, but do you have how do you predict things will pan out?
I think Biden will eke it out. It's going to be a close election, but at the end of the day, he represents a faith in American democracy. He has stood for a woman's right to control her own body and women's equality. And I think that those two issues, abortion rights and the preservation of America's democratic institutions, will carry the day, and people will choose him when confronted with the stark choice of Donald Trump.
You've spoken your mind on issues that you don't agree on, even with the government as a day or your party. How What makes you, how do you do that, and what makes you do that?
Well, I follow my conscience first and my constituency. And so I have disagreed, for example, with the bear hug and blank check to Netanyahu. I condemned Hamas's brutal terrorist attack on Israel on October 7th and believe Hamas is a terrorist organization. But I also think Netanyahu has gone too far in how he has engaged in a bombing campaign and preventing humanitarian aid from getting into Gaza, and I have spoken out about that.
How did you find yourself in Silicon Valley?
I was drawn to technology. I was fascinated by it when I was in law school. I said, this is the place where you can bend the world, and they're going to do extraordinary things. And that part of the bet turned out to be right. I mean, it's an extraordinary district with Apple and Google, NVIDIA, Tesla, companies that are truly changing the world.
I feel that the tech companies have so much power. And are you able to speak to them as someone who represents them, and at the same time, we're all worried about our data, and we're worried about all of that. And
well, I led the Internet Bill of Rights and to protect people's data, to make sure our kids aren't being exposed to algorithms on social media, to make sure that companies had to disclose what they were doing with data. And I'm hoping that we can get that passed. So I've also held them accountable in making sure that they're respecting human dignity.
In terms of racial issues, for example, there's students in India from India who've come here and experienced, there have been some tragic deaths.
Yes.
And some of the incidents are not necessarily connected, but there's been a certain anxiety among parents who are sending their children here. Many of these incidents are isolated, but there's this feeling that, are kids going to be safe? Or there have been some actual targeted, assaults.
Right.
Is there something what do you say to that? Do you think these are necessarily isolated events, or is there an element of racial prejudice that surfaces even in modern society today?
Well, of course, we have not defeated racism, and there are incidents of racism. But I would say, look, you had 2 Indian Americans who ran for president of the United States. You have 5 Indian Americans now in Congress. Indian Americans are leading Microsoft and Google and venture capital. And so the community has come a long way. And overall, I think this is still a very safe place for people to emigrate come here. And I have spoken out very strongly against any kind of hate.